Your favorite musician or sports team is coming to town. You're primed to snap up tickets the moment they go on sale. But when they do, the tickets are all gone practically before you blink. The ticket reseller bots got them first. If that's happened to you, you may be one of the people glad to hear this week that the province is promising to do something about it. Joining us now to explain what and whether it can work, in Kingston, Ontario, Sophie Koala, Liberal MPP for Kingston and the Islands, and here in our studio, Eric Alper, music publicist and host on Sirius XM satellite radio, and we're delighted to welcome you, Eric, back to our program, and Sophie, nice to have you on for the first time in a long time. I don't think we've had you on since you were a rookie.
That's right, thank you.
Anyways, let's just go through a bit of a fact file here explaining how this is all supposed to roll out. Here's what the Government of Ontario is planning: to ban ticket bots from purchasing tickets, prohibiting the sale of tickets that were purchased using bots, prohibit the resale of tickets for more than 50% over the face value. The new law would require more transparency from businesses selling tickets and create new enforcement measures. Sophie, you first in Kingston. Why is this all happening now?
So my private member's bill, Bill 22, was brought out last fall, and it was brought out after the Tragically Hip had their last concert, a concert that many, many people, as you know, wanted to see here in Kingston. And I had numerous complaints in my office, by phone, by email, people that I was speaking to in the streets, and I decided that it was time to do something about it. This has been something that has been going on for a very, very long time, as you know, and it's just been getting progressively worse. And with the increase in technology that's happening at an extremely rapid pace, it's something that people couldn't keep up with, and cultural opportunities were just not possible for many, many people. So it was time to do something about it. I brought out the private member's bill, and you know, the government decided that it was something that was worthwhile looking at and making it a government bill.
Now let me follow up with this. You know, laws can change some bad behavior, but then there is other bad behavior that laws can't do anything about. And I guess I want to know why you think a law in this case can actually make a difference.
I think that any increase in accessibility to cultural opportunities is an advantage. I know, and I think many people know, that it's not going to solve all of the problems that exist within the ticket selling industry, but it's a tool in the toolbox. And I think that anything that the government can do to make an improvement in that area, it's extremely important to do that. There is a role for government in consumer protection, and it was time for us to act, so we did.
Eric, let me get your take on this. First of all, do you agree that this is a problem to begin with?
Absolutely. You know, scalping tickets has been around probably since the Roman Empire, when somebody was selling tickets to a lion versus man event. But I remember as a kid when even take out technology where people would be lining up physically overnight to go get tickets back in the 70s and 80s. And the scalpers would pay homeless people to go wait in line for them. They'd take a $20 bill, they'd rip it up, they'd give the homeless person half of it and say, when you get the ticket, you get the other half of it. Technology is a wonderful thing. It's allowed people all over the world to have access to different events, to plan their travel, to plan their vacation around events rather than sitting on the phone like we used to do. But the problem is that it's such a lucrative business now. It's not like it's a limited edition t-shirt and it's okay to sell that shirt on eBay. This is a once-in-a-lifetime sporting event or concert, and the demand for these tickets are getting higher and higher for the amount of venues that are having these artists in the first place.
Okay, so you agree that this is a problem. Then the next question obviously becomes, is this a problem that a government can do something about by passing a law?
I think so, but I think it doesn't go far enough. There are several provinces and several states that have outright banned scalping. And we've all been to sporting events where, in certain places, where the scalpers are selling the tickets right in front of the police officers at the venue. And you think, well, obviously this is an illegal activity. Why aren't they doing something about it? Far be it for me to tell anybody, especially the police, what to do with their lives on a daily basis. But I think the competition is something that the government could get involved with. I'm not so sure that they can, because the banning of bots is a tough thing when a lot of people just don't even know how to begin to stop them in the first place. But what happened if there's an event in Toronto that somebody in the UK is buying those tickets using an IP address in Hawaii, selling it to somebody in California? I think that's where the problem is going to lie. And it's also, the government can do whatever they want to do. But I think we as people have to realize that if we want these scalpers to stop selling tickets, we just have to stop buying it from them.
Well, Sophie, I guess Eric has pointed out two potential problems here. Number one, enforcement to begin with. And number two, the technology may just be too far ahead to enable you to do anything about this at all anyway. How would you respond?
I think that Eric's exactly right. There needs to be some modification of consumer behavior as well. And I think that, focusing on that and focusing on increasing accessibility through making the measures that are outlined in the government bill, we will succeed in making a difference. Does it go far enough? Well, many people think that it goes too far. We think that we've struck the right balance at this time, and, perhaps in the future we can talk about taking further measures. But I think that it's extremely important to just make some changes now that are going to improve accessibility, making it more fair for consumers.
If a ticket bot, however, is not located in the province of Ontario, is there really anything legally you can do about that?
So if you're, for instance, buying a ticket for a concert here in Kingston, you're going to come and see the Tragically Hip, or the U2's coming to town, you would like to come, you know that it's going to be illegal to buy a $100 ticket for anything more than $150, you would then have the option to buy that ticket or not. A lot of this is about demand, as was mentioned earlier. As Eric mentioned, there's not enough opportunities for consumers, and the demand is extremely high. So if consumers are saying, no, I'm not, I know that's illegal what you're doing, I'm not going to buy that ticket at that price, and I'm going to wait and see what happens. Then the scalpers, or the people who are engaging in this unscrupulous selling activity, will not have the demand for their services as they did before.
Okay,
So
I get that.
It's also a way around it as well, is that I could, if I was a ticket scalper, I could sell the ticket for 40% with the value on top of what the ticket is, but charge them $600 for shipping, for instance, of those tickets.
So that's
it's
a
how
loophole
people get
there.
away around it with eBay, where they sell something for a penny, thinking that it's an amazing deal for you as a consumer, but then you realize that it's $125 to ship it right down the street. So there's always these ways around it. And I think that it's not just the government that has to step in on it. The artists themselves, whether it's the artists or the sports teams, and it's hard to do that because the artists themselves, for instance, they're not unionized. They don't have an association. There's various artists that have actually taken a stand against ticket scalping. For instance, with Eric Church in the country music world, when he announced his tour for North America last year, he realized that 25,000 tickets were being bought with only a handful of credit cards. So he and his management company went back to Ticketmaster, the website and the company that distributes these tickets, and said, we're going to cancel these tickets. A lot of artists just don't want to leave that kind of money on the table because they just don't care. I mean, if the money goes to them, they're not really interested in how.
Can I give an example of an artist who does care? I'm told that Garth Brooks was doing a performance in Edmonton, realized that the ticket scalpers were kind of controlling the market, and so he decided to do, what was it, 8 or 9 shows or something like that, to make sure there was plenty of quote-unquote product, and therefore the laws of supply and demand might be a little more even. But Sophie, as I hear you describe it, it sounds to me like there are still plenty of loopholes through which the proverbial Mack truck could be driven to avoid any of the sanctions that you've got in this law. I mean, is this really something that a law can do anything about?
I think that it's definitely something that where a law will make a difference. I think it's really very, very important to make that difference. And if we have to look at strengthening it down the road, then that's what we'll have to do. But I think that it's critical that we do something about it now. The consumers are asking for this. It's very important. It's not just people who want to go to a rock concert. It's families that are looking for lifetime opportunities, memories that they'll always have. You know, to take your child to a concert or some sort of a spectacle that they would not have that opportunity to engage in otherwise. It's very, very important to people, and it's important that the government respond. And, you know, I'm hopeful that, and I do believe that it is going to make a difference.
It also puts a lot of protection back on the consumer as well. In Toronto, for instance, in 2015, the Toronto government decided that they were going to create the Ticket Speculation Act, which allows not only protection in case of that ticket or that concert gets canceled, because if I buy a ticket and the ticket price is $100, but I buy it off of a scalper for $400, to Ticketmaster's eyes, that ticket is only worth $100. So it offers a money-back guarantee. If that show gets canceled or for whatever reason, I need my money back. It also protects the consumer from, if I buy a ticket from a secondary site like StubHub or another site, that person isn't going to sell that same ticket 17 times to 17 different people. And I love the fact that the government is involved, because when you have an emotional response like the Tragically Hip's potential final tour, there could have been 17 million people in this country that were trying to get tickets for. But, you know, I think that you have to stem a little bit of the tide of the emotional response. Not everybody deserves to get a ticket. Not everybody deserves to get a $30 ticket to sit in the first row to go see Beyonce.
I mean, at some points, the laws of supply and demand do have to kick in here, do they not?
Absolutely, and I think that's part of the problem sometimes with artists in general, and I work with them. If Beyonce's team knows that the first 10 rows are being scalped for $5,000, maybe it's time for Beyonce's team to start selling those tickets for $5,000 or $10,000, so that actually the fans who want to spend that much money will get those tickets rather than buying them on a secondary market.
Do you know that she doesn't sell the tickets for that much money, those several rows?
Well, no, because I mean, at the most, I think the highest ticket is probably $350 for artists like the Eagles. But all of these artists, if you reach that stature, you know to a penny how many tickets are being sold at what price throughout the entire venue. You know to a percentage how much merchandise is being sold per head of the person that is sitting in the venue. Maybe, just maybe, all these sports teams and concerts are being sold at a lower price than what the market is willing to bear. Sports teams do that now. If you want to go see a third-place team for the Toronto Blue Jays, you're not paying the same as if it's the New York Yankees.
No, that's dynamic pricing. I'll get to that in a second. But Sophie, I want to come back to you on this issue of who this bill is really designed to target. Because, well, for example, I mean, StubHub is a pretty reputable place where if you can't get a ticket directly from the team or the venue or the concert, you know, they're a secondary market. You can go to them. They've somehow got a stash that they can sell to you for obviously an inflated price. Do you also cover off, for example, the individual who maybe with a week to go realizes they actually can't go to this event after all, and they put their tickets up on Craigslist or Kijiji? Does your bill cover that kind of a sale?
I don't think that that's going to be the primary target. I think that we're looking at people who are deliberately using technology to buy up hundreds and hundreds of tickets within seconds. My understanding, once I began to do the research on this bill, my understanding is that the ticket bot technology can make 120,000 attempts a second to buy a ticket. There's no human being that can click that fast. So there's no chance.
I can't just refresh over and over and over again and hitting on it.
I'm pretty sure he's kidding on this one. I'm pretty sure he's kidding. So you're not worried about Craigslist or Kijiji here. You're going after the bots.
Well, primarily, I think that's absolutely the target, you know. But if you've got somebody who's selling on Craigslist hundreds and hundreds of tickets as well, I mean, those kinds of it's the person who's not hiring anybody like Ticketmaster does. They're not paying taxes like Ticketmaster does and some of these other organizations. They are people who are making massive amount of money doing absolutely nothing but making a transaction that occurs within a number of seconds. That's not fair, because people, consumers, are being cut out of the opportunity to have those access to those cultural events.
What's going to be really interesting about this is that you've cut it off at a 50% increase on the ticket price. What's going to be fascinating is to see the technology advances, and it's going to be a small sample because it's just Ontario that we're talking about. But if this kind of rule and this law picks up steam and the other attorney generals across North America take a look at this and see that it works, I'm not so sure that these professional scalping companies are going to sit back and say, well, we've just saw our complete profit margins cut in half, and that's okay. I think that they're going to always be one step ahead of it. But I like Sophie's idea and her team's idea about at least cutting it off so that, you know what, if you want to make some money off of your ticket because you can't go, you're perfectly entitled to do that, and that's fair market. But I don't think that the scalpers are going to care one whit that they can't sell it for those higher prices.
Let me just, Sophie, let me try this on for size, a bit of a step back here. People buy and sell things all the time and inflate the prices to as much as the market will bear for whatever the product is, because we live in a capitalist society and they're trying to make some money. Why should tickets for any particular concert or sporting event be any different from that?
There's certainly going to be market forces that will always be at play. But when you think about how the music industry, and Eric, you'll be able to respond to this as well, when you think about how the music industry has changed over the course of time, over the course of the last number of years with technology, the average consumer simply cannot afford to attend those events. It's not fair. So, you know, I think that the time is right. The time, we need to do something about it now. And we need to be flexible, and we need to work with our industry partners to make sure that we're keeping up to the times. Ticketmaster has been working on the technology to beat the bots already. We've done some research, and the more you find out about this, the more you realize that it's a very complex system. You know, there are speculative tickets as well. We haven't talked about that yet. Tickets where people who are selling tickets, who they're selling in an area, but they don't actually have a row or a seat number. Why? Because they don't actually have those tickets. So they're speculating that they will then go, once they make the sale, they will go and buy the tickets, or they'll try and buy the tickets. They're not even actually, in some cases, even selling tickets that actually exist in that moment that the transaction is made. The market has gone way too far, way too fast, and it is appropriate for government to pull it back and to make some regulation around it and to create more access for people.
Let me follow up on that in just our last few minutes here. Eric, with you, you know, the Blue Jays are one of many professional sports franchises who brought in this notion of dynamic pricing, meaning if you want to go see the Yankees play or the Red Sox play, obviously hot, more popular teams, you're going to pay more money, and the closer to game day, you're going to pay more money than you would if the Minnesota Twins or the Oakland A's come to town. Is that one way for the product, if you like, itself, to have a greater influence in the cost of a ticket as opposed to government intervention?
It's one way, and it works the direct opposite way, where if you're an artist such as Kid Rock, for instance, all of his tickets are $20. So there's
every single ticket to every concert?
Single ticket, whether you're sitting in the first row or up in the 500 section, on the top level, right behind a pole, it's $20. So they're able to...
Why does that make any sense?
Well, because what it does is that it allows the fans to make sure that they have equal access to go and see the performance, rather than wondering 2 years down the road whether or not if the audience is still existing. So what they do is that they just proclaim that, you know what, I'm going to make it affordable for everybody to go see it. You also have the ability of Ticketmaster and they do an amazing job.
Like, yeah, but the resale market on those Kid Rock concerts must be crazy.
It is, but Kid Rock also has its management to make sure that using and working with Ticketmaster or Ticket Time or whatever U.S. company he decides to partner with, that they're looking at which credit cards are being used and where. If there's an address that's way beyond, you know, the actual location of the concert, chances are your gut reaction is that's a scalp ticket.
Okay, let me get in here with, I got 20 seconds left. Sophie, what's the status of the bill? When do you expect it to pass third and final reading, get royal assent, all that stuff?
So the bill will be tabled in the fall, and I do anticipate that we will have all party support. And I'm hoping that we'll get through the readings and act this into law by the beginning of the next year, 2018.
2018.
That's my hope, but we'll see.
That is always the answer to everything. We will see. It's good of you, Sophie Koala, to be there on the line for us from Kingston, Ontario. She's the Liberal MPP for Kingston and the Islands. And Eric Alper, we look forward to your broadcasts, if they call them that, on satellite radio. It's narrowcasting more than broadcasting. But anyway, he's on Sirius XM, and we thank both of you for being on the agenda tonight.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Help TVO create a better world through the power of learning. Visit TVO.org and make a tax-deductible donation today.